everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Jeff Bronstein. I'm with Spectra Logic, and today we're going to present to you a joint solution with Spectra Logic and our friends at Tiger Technology. We're going to be talking about a solution that provides a unified storage namespace with Spectra Logic and Tiger Technology. Just a quick housekeeping item. You're all that have joined. Thank you for joining us today. Those of you on, you should see a panel that includes questions. Feel free to add those questions throughout the presentation, and we will, of course, try to get them all answered at the end. Any that we miss we'll include in the follow-up, and we'll send a recording of the webinar out to everybody who registered. Bob, next slide, please. So the challenges that a lot of our customers are facing is they have many data silos, as we say, meaning they might have production storage, for their active data. They might have some sort of secondary storage, and maybe they're manually moving data, their inactive data or backups to that secondary storage, or they're using some sort of external software like a media asset management tool. But it becomes cumbersome to manage separately all those data silos. Additionally, a lot of our customers are using production data or primary storage data, and they do not have a way to move their inactive data, their infrequently accessed data, to something that's lower cost. Because obviously your production storage is great, it's fast, it can be accessed in parallel, but it usually costs more, and it's not something that you should necessarily be paying for data that you're not using anymore, paying to keep it on that storage. Additionally, some of our customers are challenged to protect their data and make extra copies of their data to make sure that nothing happened. As some of you may know, for example, in the news, in fact, I was listening to NPR this morning, and they were talking about the city of Baltimore and how a lot of their city services are unavailable right now because of a ransomware attack. So those are all always concerns of people. So we think we've got a solution here we're going to tell you about that can address some of these challenges. Next slide, please, Bob. So your speakers today are myself, Jeff Bronstein. I'm Director of Product Management at Spectra Logic, and Bob Vassar, who's VP of Worldwide Technical Sales and Service with Tiger Technology. So I'll hand it over to Bob now, and he'll talk a little bit about the Tiger products and our joint solution. Bob, take it away.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. So we are definitely very excited about the partnership with Spectra, and especially our recent certification with their BlackPearl product. So Tiger Technology has been around solving our customers' end-to-end data workflow challenges for over 15 years. We've got 30,000 users in over 120 plus countries. Currently, there's 4 markets that we're focused on: enterprise IT, surveillance, media and entertainment, and the SMB, SME marketplaces. In the middle here, you see a sample of our customers utilizing the Tiger suite of tools, and they range anywhere from shared file system and workspace and HSM data management utilities. Below that, you'll see, in addition to Spectra, a few of our other technology partners that we integrate with. So just as an example, we've got Envy in the UK, you'll see in the middle there. They're using our Tiger BRIGE product to replicate data, over 2 petabytes of data, in fact, across 2 different facilities. And Tiger Store, as well as our Avid FS for bin locking, is being used to manage their workflow. And others are a mix of production, file system, as well as data management utilities from Tiger. So let's go over a few of the products in our suite. We'll start with the far left, which is the Spaces product, Tiger Spaces. Customers will use the Spaces product to manage workspaces in a virtual container-like environment. It allows you to containerize your entire project into a single managed directory where you can assign users or groups and give those access privileges. It's also seamlessly integrated across the homogeneous or heterogeneous environment of different storage types, and allows us to seamlessly migrate data between the silos that Jeff was talking about earlier. The next one is Tiger Store, which is our file system shared file system product. It incorporates clients that support Windows, Mac, and Linux. You can have a SAN or a NAS or mixed access workflow. We have the LAN access also features a failover mechanism, so your high performance, low latent SAN clients will have failover access over to the LAN network, so you'll always have access to your data as well. These products integrate with Active Directory natively. We've also got features that handle auto defragmentation, and if you're working in compressed or uncompressed sequences, we have image sequencing alignment as well as those files are ingested. The next product we have is our Tiger Pool. It combines multiple LTFS volumes into a single namespace, so you're able to scale seamlessly into exabyte scale capacity on LTFS workflows. The last product, and probably the most important one that we'll be talking mostly about today, is the Tiger Bridge on the far right. It's a Windows file system extension that extends your namespace across multiple targets, such as BlackPearl. We also target NAS, DAS, or SAN targets on your network, or tape as an option. It's a simple policy-based storage management utility. You're able to manage your local capacity as well, and it's used for backup, archive, or disaster recovery. We've also extended those capabilities with multi-site collaboration, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So with content stored in many locations and potentially aging devices and devices that could be failing, the challenge for administrators without a Tiger Store utility is the understanding of where is all of your data located, what is active and what's inactive data, so which data types are candidates for replication for data protection, or which data sets might be candidates for archival or for later being able to monetize that data. The data might be waiting for approval of budgets, and in this case, you can set policies based on business rules to decide when to migrate or when to reclaim your space and keep it just on your target. So here with Tiger Bridge, what we'll see is that Tiger Bridge integrates directly with the BlackPearl product as a target, and any Windows file system extended across BlackPearl, making it an integral part of the entire file system namespace. So it's seamless, it's software only, installed directly on the application server or a Tiger appliance, and integrates natively into the file system, providing a single extensible namespace. You can manage any volume or even a folder, and the applications don't need to talk to S3 as well. So applications, you don't have to change any codes. Applications that use today that integrate directly with the POSIX file systems don't have to change. They'll natively be able to talk to BlackPearl via its S3 interface. So here we see the extension of Tiger Bridge, which provides multi-site synchronization capabilities. And in this use case, we'll see the need for disaster recovery. It's ideal for collaboration. So if you've got remote offices or you've got a production environment and you want to share certain content with another company or a contractor anywhere in the world, we can set up synchronization in Bridge and be able to do multi-site collaboration. Distribution of content, or in this case, another case would be a remote office. So you can have one master copy of all of your content and have remote employees anywhere in the world, i.e. a Dropbox type environment. So now we'll go through some of the policies that are available with Bridge. So as mentioned earlier, Bridge is a software only. It installs on any Windows application or file server. So the Tiger Bridge product actually stems from the Tiger Store application and integrates directly into the LTFS file system. So Tiger Bridge integrates at the kernel level, and it's file system aware, and it gives applications full local storage performance for local file data, so we sit outside the data path. It fulfills application requests for data that have been migrated to BlackPearl. So any file that, based on the policy, that has been migrated or reclaimed, meaning it's been moved to the BlackPearl, will intercept those calls and be able to fulfill those requests directly from the BlackPearl target. It's transparent to applications and users. depending on the network connection to the BlackPearl, of course. There's three policies that control the locality of the data. It's replicate, which copies files based on defined last access times to target. It preserves ACLs and permissions of all files, as well as we migrate those files to the target, and even on restore, we'll restore those permissions as well. Reclaim moves the local copy of data. It removes the local copy of data and replaces it with a 0-byte stub file. In this case, that file looks and acts exactly as if it was the original file to the application. So the applications are unaware of the locality of the data. So there's no change to the workflow or the application needed. And retrieval of that content is simple. You just open that file, whether it's a stub, we'll retrieve it automatically for you, but it's on demand. So retrievals are, if an application requests the data and tries to access it, we'll retrieve it for you. If a user opens it through an Explorer interface, we'll retrieve that data for you as well, on demand. The archive case is dependent on the target that you choose, and in this case, BlackPearl manages the archive. So archive wouldn't be using the BlackPearl case. However, if you had a multi-targeted environment where you had public cloud that does support archive, such as AWS to Glacier or Microsoft Azure to their archive tiers, we'll be able to migrate that data directly between the tiers in the cloud. So here we'll look at some of the HSM policies that we'll be able to set up. But before you set the policies up, right after the installation, you'll pair a source to the target. So you can use BRIGE to manage any source. You don't have to set up a separate directory to manage the source. So all your content in place today can be managed by TigerBridge. So after selecting your source, you'll pair that with a target. And here you'll find the BlackPearl target, which is highlighted there. And this incorporates some of the tuning parameters that we've done working closely with Spectra and the BlackPearl product. So simply enter the credentials to be able to connect to the BlackPearl target, and then select a bucket, and that bucket will be paired with your source. So once the policy is enacted, you'll be able to find all of your data located in that target bucket. So once the source and target have been paired, the first policy you'll want to set up is a replication policy. Here you have a simple rule that defines how long after the last access of the file will replicate that file to the target. With the reclaim policy, you'll define how long after the file is last accessed before the local copy is converted into the stub file. The file is checked to the target before we remove the content locally and convert it to a stub, so you're always guaranteed that that file exists in the target. You can also decide if you want to not reclaim smaller files, so then leave small files behind, and files larger than a certain size, we'll reclaim those and leave those only in the target. The reclaim policy also allows you to manage your local capacity. So you can set thresholds on your quota percentage of used capacity, and at that point, if your disk starts to become too full, we'll ignore the policy that was set, and we'll just start reclaiming space, reclaiming the oldest last access file, and maintain that local percentage of used capacity on your drive. So now we'll walk through sort of the life cycle of a file after you've applied a replicate and a reclaim policy. So in this example, we got a file called sample.avi. It's 400 megabytes, and it lives locally on your production storage. So once the reclaim or the replace policy is enacted based on last access time, that file will get replicated to the BlackPearl target. So now we'll have a copy local of 400 megabytes, and we'll have a copy in BlackPearl of 400 megabytes. Then at the defined trigger point for the reclaim, we'll convert the local into the stub, and your file will only exist in the target storage on BlackPearl. So the local to the application of the user still looks like it's there. It's still the sample AVI. It still has all of the permissions. You can still look at properties on the file without recovering it from the target storage. But the local capacity on disk used will be 0 bytes. So now let's look at the case where we're retrieving this file. So a user opens the file or an application requests access to that file. So once the user or application opens that file, we'll fulfill that request because it doesn't exist locally in the LTFS file system. We'll pull that in from BlackPearl. So now you'll have the copy on the target as well as the copy local after the retrieval. That will go back into the queue because it just had its last access time updated because you've opened that file. So once that reclaim policy is triggered again, we'll go ahead and turn the local copy back into a sub file so that copy of the file only exists on the target. So for users that are using our store product, which is our file system shared product, we have a file browser that will give you access and visibility into the state of all of your files. So you open the file browser with store and you'll be able to browse in a directory tree on the left. You'll see all of your files on the right, and you'll see a status column that'll tell you the state of the file, whether the file is replicated, whether it's offline. And in this window, it's integrated with BRIGE, so you can also manually override your policies at any point in time if you want to replicate or restore or reclaim. You can do that with the buttons at the top. From a Windows Store client, and this is still with the Store shared file system product, all of the attributes are visible in any Windows Client Explorer, so you can filter and sort and look at your data and see what the state of the file is through Windows Explorer clients. If you're on a Mac client, you can do the same thing. We show you the offline state in the column in your Mac Finder windows. So TigerBridge, just to sum up what TigerBridge does with BlackPearl, it extends the Windows namespace and makes BlackPearl an extension of your production storage. Jeff?
Great. Thanks a lot, Bob. So let's talk a little bit about BlackPearl and what it is. We call BlackPearl a converged storage system. It's because it really solves the problems that needed to in the past be addressed by multiple systems. We've now provided this in one box. An example is what we would traditionally call middleware that was used particularly in the media and entertainment space to talk to tape libraries. That is no longer needed with BlackPearl. BlackPearl has multiple interfaces on the front end. So we have a NAS type interface as well as an S3 based interface we call Spectra S3. That's what the TigerBridge product integrates with. And then on the back end, we support multiple archives storage or secondary storage targets. And the system is designed for numerous concurrent workflows. So TigerBridge could be moving data in and out of BlackPearl as well as some other software product you may be using. And you can be doing that in parallel, and there's no additional cost for using that type of feature. Next slide, Bob. So BlackPearl is a hardware box. Our standard unit is a 4U chassis. We sell the hardware because we really want to make sure that the performance and the behavior, meets our high standards. But at its heart, it really is a software product. Most of our engineers on the BlackPearl product are in fact software engineers. And so one of the things that critically BlackPearl does is it sends data to these secondary storage targets. And we'll talk a little bit about those more on the subsequent slides. But we can move data to our Spectra tape libraries, to disk storage, to BlackPearl at another site so that you could replicate data and have other storage targets behind the BlackPearl at that other site. And we can also use the public cloud. BlackPearl makes this all possible with a software feature we call Advanced Bucket Management, ABM for short. And it's basically our policy engine in BlackPearl. And the policy engine decides based on how the user configures it or administrator configures it, how data is placed on all these different storage targets. So for example, you might want to make 2 copies of your data on tape, on 2 different tapes, and maybe you want to eject one of those. Those are all possible, very easily set up through BlackPearl. An additional example might be I want to make a copy to tape and a copy to disk. So initially I have that fast access on disk, and later when I'm not using the object or asset as often, I still have it, but it's available on tape. Next slide, Bob. So in terms of the local storage targets that are available behind BlackPearl, there's 2 types. The first is our BlackPearl Object Storage Disk, and I'll give some more details on that on the next slide. The next is what Spectra is probably most known for, which is our tape libraries. We have, the most innovative, reliable, and affordable tape libraries around. We continue to pour lots of money into research and development, into improving tape technology. Tape has a long roadmap available in terms of density increases going forward in the future. SpectraLogic also happens to make the highest capacity tape library in the world, the Spectra T-Finity Exascale. Tape libraries also have, obviously tape has the advantage that no other real popular medium does, which is that once you write data to it, you can take it, not only is it, the tape is offline and powered down and when it's in the tape library, but you can actually eject the tape out of the library and put it in some sort of vault or protected facility, ensuring that it can never be accessed and you can be protected from things like ransomware and so forth. Next slide, Bob. So behind BlackPearl, we can also put what we call our object store disk. This is formerly called Arctic Blue in our marketing terminology. And what this does is it's using, again, this idea of an object store S3 type interface on the front end, stored on affordable enterprise power down disk. This is a very cost-effective solution for disk. We use a special JBOD that can actually hold now 107 drives in a single 4U JBOD. With our current 12 terabyte drives, that gets you up to about 1.2 petabytes of storage in a 4U rack, and we're just about to introduce 16 terabyte drives, which gets you to almost 2 petabytes in a 4U rack. The other great feature of this BlackPearl object store disk is that you can optionally choose to power down the drives. Because we have the BlackPearl Converged storage system acting as a gateway in front of this object storage disk, it knows when data is going in and out of the system, and in fact, data coming into the system first lands on BlackPearl's cache before it goes to this object storage disk. So BlackPearl can power up and power down these disks as it needs to read and write data from them and do that in a very efficient way. There's two main advantages. Obviously, when you power something down, you're going to save a lot of energy. And then secondarily, it also extends the life of the drives, of course, because they're not being used, not spinning down. And BlackPearl uses all of the native spin down technologies built into the drive. So we're not just, flipping the switch. We're using what the drives are intended to be used in terms of power down capabilities. But this is a really interesting option for customers who maybe are, thinking about wanting to have a more affordable secondary storage solution, but for whatever reason don't want to use tape. This is near the price of tape, but is actually disk. The disk, if you choose the power down option, I think it takes about 6 to 7 seconds for the drives to come online and the files to be served. Obviously, if you leave it on, then the files are available immediately. Next slide, Bob. So based on these different, ideas of cost and performance, you can kind of decide what storage target or targets are right for your environment. If lowest cost is your main driver and you don't need the file back immediately within seconds, then tape might be a really good option for you. And of course, tape is still the most reliable storage medium and has all the protections like being able to take the tape offline. For a little bit more, you can get disk though, and obviously get the higher performance. And then we have customers, like I said, that actually do a combination of both, where they'll put assets on both and let them expire from disk after some period of time when they know they're less likely to access it, and then use it on tape from going forward from there. Go ahead, Bob, next slide. So if you could just do this animation sequence, Bob, till we get to, I think there's about 3. So one of the many features available in BlackPearl is the ability to migrate media. So in the past with tape, the process of moving from older generations to newer has been a somewhat painful process. BlackPearl can do this seamlessly and in the background, so that for example, users can continue to use TigerStore, accessing data that maybe even has to be pulled off of tape. And in the meanwhile, BlackPearl is migrating the data, from, say, if you've got LTO5 and now you want to go to 7 or now 8's available, you could go ahead and do that migration. It'll do it automatically and transparently in the background. It'll just, what it does is it reads the data out to that BlackPearl disk cache and then writes it back to new tapes. This is one of the many features, software features available to BlackPearl. Others that are interesting is that we do write the tapes in an open LTFS format. So this means that you have sort of a, you don't have vendor lock-in, right? You're not locked into Spectra Logic. You can take those tapes and read them, have them read by any other LTFS tape drive reader. It's an open format. Other things we do related to these types of features are what we call self-healing. So if you do make multiple copies of your objects or your assets, which we do recommend in an archive, that if we identify one of the copies is bad, then BlackPearl will automatically generate a new second copy where it's supposed to be. So we call that self-healing. We also have what we call tape recompaction. That's the ability to, if you've deleted a lot of files on tape and you want to remove those files that are not deleted, that are kind of left between where the holes are not located, and you want to recompact your data on new tapes, you can do that also automatically and transparently in the background. You can also change your data policy. So I mentioned there's the data placement policies of using single copy on tape or dual copy on tape. Let's say later, after you've been writing your data to tape for 6 months, you decide that you want to add a copy into the cloud. You can do that and then modify that data policy, and then going forward, not only will your data that in the future be written to both tape and cloud, but then in the background, BlackPearl will immediately start copying any existing data that's on tape to the cloud as well, so it'll sync up over time. So a lot of powerful features as a software product. Next slide. I think we'll go back to you now, Bob, to talk about some of the typical use cases and other methods of Tiger BRIGE being able to integrate with Spectra storage.
All right, perfect. Thank you. So now if we wrap all of this or pull all of this together, we'll go over a general use case. So in the upper right, if you've got a Tiger Store appliance and running a SAN, a NAS, or a hybrid of any of those workflows, you can add Tiger BRIGE to that workflow. Now, it doesn't have to be a Tiger Store appliance or production workflow either. If you've got a Windows, your own Windows file server, or your current production environment running a Windows client, Tiger BRIGE will install simply as software only into any of those environments as well. But the Tiger Store would give you that mixed environment, Windows, Linux, Mac support in a high-performance, scalable production environment. BRIGE will be able to monitor any of those data sets that the user would define, and then based on the policies that they would define, doing a replicate, a reclaim, or depending on the target, an archive. BRIGE would manage under the hood with that NTFS file system, the locality or the migration of that data to BlackPearl. BlackPearl then would manage that based on bucket policies to any of the targets that they support that Jeff just went over. So that migration of the data is seamless, whether it's your file server, production environment. You could have a production environment that has hundreds of terabytes or petabytes of data that exists today. You could load Tiger BRIGE on that server without any downtime. You would tell Tiger BRIGE to manage any specific directory or the entire volume if you'd wish. And at that point, Tiger BRIGE would start managing the location and the placement of that data. So the Tiger Store suite of products with Spaces and Pool allow you to dynamically extend or expand that system. Spaces, again, allows you to manage your workspaces or projects in containers that admins can easily assign users or groups privileges to. You can also migrate or move that data between your production silos. And then with BRIGE added to that, you can move all of that data and decide which files are candidates for replication for data protection purposes, or if you just want to move that data set into more of a long-term preservation or archive. So we've also got the capabilities to support BlackPearl via a NAS interface. Currently, the traditional use is through their S3. But if you set up BlackPearl with an SMB interface, you could take your file server, point your file server, BRIGE, and install BRIGE on that file server, put BlackPearl as your NAS target as well, and then your Windows interface, anything that is running Tiger BRIGE. In that Windows Explorer interface, we give you icon cues as to the locality or the state of that file. So you can see blue tags on most of the files here. You'll see a little orange tag on those files. Those are indicators whether that file is replicated or if that file is offline. The blues would be offline, meaning if you looked at the properties on that file, you would see the total size of the file, and on disk it would say 0 bytes. So you'll know that file is a sub file. You also get contextual menus. So if you right-click any file or a folder, you'll see a Tiger BRIGE menu that pops up, and you can manually tell Tiger BRIGE to replicate, reclaim, retrieve, or move that file to an archive. So you don't have to wait for policies if you're in a situation where you know you want to or need to replicate it immediately. You can override and do an immediate replication or retrieval of any file or full directory if you wanted to. We're in the process of certifying Tiger BRIGE with the Spectra library stack. So we've got an LTFS format, and we'll be able to talk to the the Spectra libraries directly through the Spectra stack. So we can manage the library. We've got a tape management application that you'll see there. So we'll be able to show you the drives that are in the library. You can list all the tapes that are available, used capacities on the tapes, format those. So you have full management capabilities with a tape library directly managed by Tiger BRIGE as well. So I think that wraps it up.
Great. Thanks, Bob. We've got a couple questions. The first one's for you, Bob, and so it has to do with Tiger BRIGE. Could you review all the policies that are available? In other words, what are the different parameters you can use to determine what you want to archive in the policies? And then specifically, he asked about if you can migrate based on file content. I'm guessing he means file type, like a .mov or something like that.
Sure. So the policy types, there's 3. So there's a replication, there's the reclaim, and then there's archive. So replication is based on last access time on the file, and replication is basically it's a copy. So we'll leave a local copy, and then you'll have a copy of that in the target. The next policy is a reclaim. So the replication policy is the first one that you want. So you want to have your content out there, and then you decide how often you want to wait. If you want continuous data protection, then you'll set the last access time to immediate, and we'll just constantly, as the files are created, we're going to replicate those for you, or you can set those for 2 days, a week, depending on business rules. Reclaim then would be the next phase you probably want to set, so beyond the replicate period. So it's still based on last access time, but at that point we're going to make sure that the target copy exists, and we're going to convert the local into a subfile. So reclaim is basically a move effectively of the file, and it's used for managing the local capacity on your system, on your production storage. We've also got within the reclaim parameters the ability to set a threshold for used space. So once your used capacity reaches a certain percentage, which you'll set, say it's 80%, we'll make sure that your used capacity always maintains about that 80% range. So if you go over 80%, then we'll start ignoring the policy, and we won't wait for the next policy to trigger. We're just going to go look for the file with the longest access time and start replicating those files until we get you down to the 80%. So those are used to control the expense of your production environment, as well as being able to move stale content to a more cost-effective target, such as the BlackPearl. And then you had a question about content type. So we have the ability to exclude. So if you manage the entire volume, you can exclude folders today. We are in the works in putting in file type exclusions as well. There is a default exclusion though, just to protect applications, where we won't reclaim, but we will replicate exe files and DLL files. So you could actually use BRIGE to manage your C drive, and we'll replicate all of those files, but we won't reclaim and interfere with applications that are running. So there are some defaults that we won't replicate, and those you can set as exclusions as well. And you can set exclusions on specific folders if you don't want those replicated or reclaimed.
Great. Thanks, Bob. I think the next question is for me, and I think it is in reference to the next to last slide before the question. It says, what is the advantage of BlackPearl versus direct integration to tape, I guess tape with BRIGE, right? So the BlackPearl provides a number of advantages because BlackPearl is a way to move data into tape, for example, right? So you could have BlackPearl plus tape and BRIGE talking to BlackPearl, or you can have just the tape library and BRIGE talking to the tape. The advantage of not having BlackPearl is obvious. There is a cost for the BlackPearl, so it's a more cost-effective solution. BlackPearl, though, it is a pretty affordable solution in and of itself, and the price is not based on the capacity of data you're moving. So that's important to note. But if you do buy BlackPearl, the advantages you get is you're creating an object storage interface in front of your secondary storage, such as tape. And so you can set policies based on how many copies you want to make and things like that. You also get all those other great features I mentioned, like the ability to migrate data, recompact data, self-heal, many other features. And then I think probably the most important thing is you maybe want to use this secondary storage for other workflows beyond Tiger BRIGE, and you can use it for that. Whereas if you just have a tape library, you always would have to buy software that can talk directly to a tape library. Once you have BlackPearl, there's lots of different things that can talk to BlackPearl, or you can write your own things. We have open SDKs. We have a developer website, developer.spectralogic.com, but anybody can go to and download some of the free applications that talk to BlackPearl, as well as the free SDKs to talk to the S3 type interface. So those are the big differences. Bob, the next question is for you. I think this will be our last one. Asking about do they need to set up a dedicated watch folder, or I think that's kind of asking about sort of some of the other traditional systems, particularly that we see in the media and entertainment space. Do they have to do that to stage the data to the BlackPearl?
Sure. No, you typically see that with your HSM gateway type products. They'll have a dedicated folder that they watch for content changes, new content being added. Tiger BRIGE is not a gateway. It's software only. It integrates directly into the file system, and you tell us what you want managed. So we absolutely do not require or need a watch folder to be able to migrate data to the target. If you wanted to work on a watch folder that'll set up something, you can absolutely do it. But it's not a requirement. We monitor data in place the way you have it today.
Okay, great. Thanks. We did get one last minute question here. Let's go ahead and make this our last one. Any further questions we'll go ahead and answer after the webinar. The last question was, how does Tiger BRIGE, BlackPearl, and the tape library handle loads of many small files? So Bob, why don't you respond in regards to Tiger BRIGE, and I'll respond in terms of BlackPearl and tape.
Sure. So the nice thing about Tiger BRIGE, thank you for that question because I didn't mention it, but Tiger BRIGE doesn't actually have a database that you need to manage. So our database is the LTFS file system, which is designed, and it works very well with small files. So as large as that file system can grow, we grow with it. So our database is the file system. We use extended attributes to manage files. Within those extended attributes, we keep the location of the targets, and those locations are also stored. The original URLs and paths to files are stored in the objects as well. So disaster recovery, I don't actually need that file system to recover in a disaster recovery scenario. All of that original data structure and metadata is contained within the objects. But internally on the file system, no no problems with small files because you know my database is the file system, so it's highly expandable.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Bob. BlackPearl does have a database in it. It does need to track, of course, where it's storing all the objects, you know, what tape it's on, the position of the tape and stuff like that. So we do have to take it into consideration. Currently, we list the BlackPearl database capacity at about 1 billion objects, though. I've actually got people in the lab right now working on testing higher capacity solid-state drives that store the database in BlackPearl to get that up into the 5 to 6 billion mark. We're hoping to get into that sort of range. With tape, it really depends on how small you're talking about. Performance can be slower, but it's typically bearable even for smaller files. It just depends on how small you're talking about. In terms of what we can do to address the issue beyond that is, as Bob mentioned, BRIGE can also archive to our NAS, our network attached storage, which again can be in the same BlackPearl box, or we can provide a separate BlackPearl box for that. And so you could have some segment of your data that BRIGE is archiving to BlackPearl, which might go to tape, and then another segment that would go and archive to the NAS. Maybe it's an area where you have small files. Obviously, the NAS would have no problem. There's no database or anything on record limit for that. So that's one way we would typically work around that. So. All right, everybody, thank you so much for your time today. And like I said, we'll be sending out a copy of the recording, and we appreciate your interest. Thank you. Have a good day.